What is up, y'all? We are here today for our weekly manifestation oracle message since they got flipped around at the beginning of the week. And since we had a little topsy-turvy week, I decided to use another of my old favorites, the Enchanted Map. This is one of Colette Baron-Reid's earlier oracle decks. I always loved her writing and her choice of artist. We have Moonlight. So we just had our full moon in Sagittarius, and that was sort of like this really nice energy that allowed us to, like, at the full moon in Scorpio at the beginning of the month, that's kind of seeded the month along with our new moon. It like was revealing secrets and revealing things to us throughout the month. And then the second full moon of the month, that blue moon in Sagittarius, really like materialized our realizations and helped to sort of like push our momentum into bringing those things into realization and to then execute and plant seeds that are going to be incubating over the next 6 months. So they've been well planted, and we need to, take care to fertilize the soil, if you will, and cultivate the growth at a livable pace, right? And don't force anything. Take your time. We've been getting messages recently that ask us to have a sense of urgency, as in not putting off the work any longer. But then once we're sitting down, like let the work breathe, give it space, take our time, as to not make any costly mistakes or miss anything of value or importance. So not only are things in our mundane life, not only have those things been revealed to us over the past month or so in a new kind of clarity, but also in our inner world as well. And we might have been made aware of certain patterns and unconscious perspectives or belief systems that were sort of driving the ship without us knowing, and kind of driving our choices and our direction, and preventing us from being truly like sovereign and using our free will. So the moonlight has really helped us recently reveal what has been concealed. And I think too, just embracing rhythms of prolific creation and illumination, and then also embracing those darker rhythms of waning and release and rest. What do we have here? listening. So one of the gifts of darkness, of rest, is listening. We can do a lot, like we can do so much to make an effort and to pray and to constantly communicate with the universe and with God what we want and what we desire and what we hope for and even what we fear. But if we don't take time to be still and listen, then we won't get our answer. We won't get our direction. The receiving is in the ability to listen, and listening requires stillness and quiet, not only from a physical, mundane, material perspective, but it requires like an inner sense of silence and peace and stillness as well. Have you ever been around a person that really, even in like say a vacation scenario where there's nowhere to be, no rush, they still can't sit in stillness and relax. They're kind of like moving around. They can't sit still. Their attention is all over the place. They still feel this sense of like disembodied anxiety, or you feel it around them, right? So what we want is to cultivate that inner stillness that gives us that ability to sit and be at peace. And then also it kind of radiates a sense of peace and well-being around us. Awesome. The listening. So like the elephants, I think, are matriarchal, and they're very intelligent, and they're very like human in their sense of like relationship to one another in their herds. Like they bury their dead. They go back to the same places year after year and pay respect, and they build things, and they alter their environment to their needs, and they're very industrious and constructive. So take a page out of the elephant's book. Heal the ouch. This is a time for healing. When we had our lunation video, circling back to our recent workshop, the full moon workshop, it it brought up that this was a time of possibility for both mother healing and father healing, like healing those wounds within us and healing the aspects of ourself that arose as a result of maybe childhood difficulties that we had or patterns that we picked up from our parents, right? So think about those early wounds or those early patterns or things that were prominent. And then how did that alter you, or how did that shape you in your behavior, how you approached the world? We're now seeing that and seeing that reactivity. Like even in the sense of like, say, I can't remember whether it was Tony Robbins that said that had this as a background, or maybe it was like some other person that I'd heard say this at some point, but neither here nor there. This person was like, I grew up and my father was an alcoholic. It may not have been him. Let's just, basic, generic, somebody talking in the public one time was giving this example. Their father was an alcoholic, and their father was abusive to them and their mother. And so they made it a point that they would never drink the rest of their life. And so even though that on the surface seems like it would be like a positive like outcome, as opposed to like, say, because my dad was an alcoholic, I became an alcoholic, they're still reactive because that like forced you to do something in like this reactionary consciousness because of that thing. I'm not going to do this, instead of just being completely free to live your life as you wanted, and really base it upon whether or not you had a healthy relationship with alcohol or not. Like, so I don't know if that gives you like a good example of, say, obviously like some things, you know, we're like, are more obvious than others, right? Like an event arose from my parents and then I was rebellious ever since, or I was in spite, and you know, but sometimes it's insidious. Sometimes we take on, for instance, a lot of women have good girl complex where, you know, the wounds caused them to be reactive in a sense where they were well behaved and nice and quiet and people pleasing to keep the peace. And then they lost themselves in the process, right? And kind of went off path that way. So that's also a reactive behavior that's hiding in sheep's clothing because it seems like you are being submissive and obedient, right? But is that really in alignment with your true authenticity, your path, your calling? You know, are you being submissive to God, or are you being submissive to people, right? You know, when the scripture talks about, you know, that kind of thing, it's really directed at our ability to be submissive to the will and creation and direction of God, but people like to get in there and kind of weaponize that and make people feel like they have to be submissive to everyone in their life that craves authority over them, right? So looking back at our ouches and our wounds, did we develop personality traits or behaviors or resistance to certain things because of those? And can we go back and repair and reprogram and choose for ourselves our own consciousness, our own sovereignty about whatever that issue was going forward? Because now we've named it. When we name things, we take their intensity of their hold that they have over us. It like loosens the hold, the grip, and it makes way for us to keep recognizing that, keep reprogramming it. And you know, the mother wound has to do with our self-worth and what we think that we deserve, or what, you know, we think that we're allowed to have. And what you know, it affects our sense of our own value. But our father wound affects us in a different way. It affects our ability to show up and to be consistent and to have discipline and to be reliable, even if that means to ourselves, right? And so think about that external expression as the masculine versus the internal expression, which is that feminine. All right, I feel like it was that card right there. What do we have? Ooh, movement. I love this. I think that there is momentum starting. And so when we heal the inner source of the issue in our life, right? If we can clean up that inner contaminant, then the outer world changes and it's in a fulfilling and sustaining way. Whereas we can force the outer world to change, but if we still have the inner contaminant, we're still going to be fighting against swimming against the current of chaos, so to speak. So good things have happened, good internal shifts are happening, which are allowing for forward movement and forward progress and forward momentum. And then the energy coach, Feel Good, if you guys are familiar with him, he was just bringing up something recently that I feel like I can pick up on that too. Is that he was saying that for like several years ago, we were getting into a greater awareness of like how our body would talk to us and tell us very clearly, don't do this, or you need a break today, or it would give us greater senses of the rhythms or what our body was needing. But then there was a couple of years where we were required to just like push through and build momentum, and it was like we were having to work a lot harder to get that momentum going. And now he said it's like he felt a shift recently where it's like we're kind of getting back into that ability to live in a more manageable pace, because we've built our momentum. We just need to maintain that momentum. So don't be resting on your laurels, so to speak, but you don't have to, I don't think, keep up the same intensity. And I feel that too. I've been feeling a shift in my like the momentum. Like once I got that Substack and Patreon set up officially, I felt an immense weight off of my chest. Like, oh, something huge that has been pulling me and tugging at me is now finally like in place. And so now it's like about execution and enrichment and expansion. So I'm really excited about that. It just feels like there's so much more room to breathe everywhere. And even this week, I've been getting back into the schedule of trying to get everything filmed before work, and then having evenings as a more restful time where I can wind down and give myself that space and go to bed earlier. All right, you all. Well, I hope you have a good week as far as your manifestations go. I hope you're having a good time of building up some momentum and clarity and direction like I am. And if you want to subscribe to either my Patreon or my Substack, you'll find me under the name Elizabeth Rose, and that will have everything that I make out of public content, posts and videos and everything. And then if you want to get into my Secret Teachings publication, that's $6 on both of those platforms per month. Or if you pay the year, you get 2 months free, and it's $60. So $60 is less than one session with me in a reading, and then you get like endless content that I put out all year long. So I'm excited. I'm gonna be doing more like Bible study, theology study, Zohar, lost books of the Bible, the Gnostics, all that stuff, secret teaching style stuff, and then going deeper into specific like spiritual foundational principles. So it's more like organized and curated educational sort of institution and library, if you will. But I'm excited about it, you guys. So you will find me on Substack as Elizabeth Rose, and you'll look for the Secret Teachings publication where it'll have my links at the top of my public profile. And that's how you subscribe to that. And then on Patreon, there's just one option for a paid tier, and that will put you... that will make all of that same content available to you there. And then on both platforms, I'm going to include 2026 prediction series as part of your content that's available in that Secret Teachings publication. It's just a matter of getting those uploaded to Substack, but they're already available via Patreon. All right, you guys, I've got a link to the Substack Secret Teachings below. If not, just find me on both of those at Elizabeth Rose, and then everywhere else on social media, you can also find me on Elizabeth Rose, including I have another channel on YouTube, Elizabeth Rose. So if you're interested in that, go subscribe. If not, then I'll just keep seeing you here. Ciao.